I think the primary one is climate change. So the exhaust and greenhouse gases from freight is a significant impact to the environment.
We do focus on GHG emissions, but we also got to think about the particulates and with diesel and what diesel does to the human body. And so that is something that has been a big focus, I think, at the state level as well as the regional level and the air quality districts. And so we're at a point now where we are starting to actually partner with each other for the first time with the air districts, and the transportation districts are starting to say, yeah, how can we work together?
Sustainability. So looking at alternative fuels is not just for truck traffic, but also for perhaps shipping and air travel, as well as any type of systems that might be traveling or might be transporting goods. And then lastly, I think the difference between, or the movement that's taken place over the decades towards more of a world trade type of economy that exists today, and purchasing goods from all around the world, and the effect that that has on our environment and our social need. You know, as we go forward into the next decades, several decades, I think we're going to have to be looking at the possibility of modifying the way that we trade goods, and maybe looking more at locally produced products. We'll still have shipping. Shipping is always going to be the most economical and efficient means of moving goods across the oceans. And I think we'll move towards more of the mega ships, the bigger ships that can move a larger volume of goods. And then, of course, the railroad. We'll still have the railroad. That's an efficient system as long as it's using or moving goods a long distance. In the short term, I think trucks are going to play a key role, continue to play a key role. But how we utilize those trucks, I think, is going to be the big changes that we'll see in the next several decades. So in the shorter term, maybe in the next couple of decades, having those smart corridors that utilize technology to allow for the autonomous vehicles or the connected vehicles to operate separate from the passenger vehicles. So that would either be a separate type of facility or a facility adjacent to an existing corridor. Maybe the use of drones is in the not too distant future, I think, for smaller type of distribution. That's an option. Electrification and alternative fuels, like I mentioned earlier. And then maybe eventually we'll see something like the Hyperloop come into play that can move goods at real high speed across the continent. The ALAMEDA Corridor project was a great success. It eliminated a lot of at-grade intersections between railroad and surface travel vehicles. It connects the ports of LA and Long Beach to the Transcontinental Railway. And again, it was a huge success because it improved safety and it improved reliability of train traffic coming out of the ports and into the interior of the United States. Those type of projects it eliminated a lot of the at-grade crossings that can cause congestion as well as safety issues. For example, in Riverside alone, we have 46 existing grade crossings. So, and some of those are in concentrated locations, like in the urban settings. So those would be a real viable opportunity for us to continue something.
Do we have the resources to solve all the transportation problems we've created? The answer is no. The American Society of Civil Engineers estimates it's like $1 trillion that we need on top of what we're spending to close the infrastructure deficit. So what does that mean? It means that it is great, by the way, a miracle, in fact, that Congress actually passed a 5-year transportation bill that put a modest increase in the coffers so that we can put a floor under us over the next 4 or 5 years. But it also means that we have to work to accelerate projects to save time and money where we can without compromising on the environment, without shortchanging the public input process. That's why front-ending the public input process is going to be so critical. It also means that we have to look at creative ways to pay for projects. And are there public-private partnership opportunities to do it? We should also inventory the projects we have in the queue and figure out whether there are places where we need to thin the herd. You know, are there things that we can't do or shouldn't do because of obsolescence at this point that would give us greater capacity to focus on the things that we should do? If you've watched what the president has done over his 8 years, you've seen just a steady effort to reduce U.S. impacts on climate change. As part of the suite of things the president has done, he's raised fuel standards on cars. He has also raised fuel standards on medium and heavy trucks, which are directly tied to freight. Just a few weeks ago, we were part of an international decision to raise global market-based measures, essentially enhancing the efficiency and decreasing emissions for airplanes, which are some of the biggest emitters in the transportation system. And over the president's tenure, we've just begun innovating with shipping by converting some of our ships to LNG. My point is that we are very well aware that the transportation system roughly accounts for about 28% of our contributions to greenhouse gas emissions. And I think the president has taken a very comprehensive approach to knocking those numbers down, and hopefully over time we'll get to zero.
Whenever I look at global issues, I think the first one in my mind is Panama Canal. Recently, Panama Canal just opened, I believe in June or July last year. The opening part gave us a big impact to the East Coast and the West Coast in terms of ports and also the construction of ports and management of ports. For the East Coast side, because they are not prepared for welcoming all of the large vessels coming down from Panama Canal. So East Coast ports right now, they are working on it to enlarge their infrastructure to allow the large vessel to be there for berthing, for loading, unloading business. So that's kind of their job right now in the East Coast. They realize that the impact of that one is from Panama Canal, because a lot of international carriers, they want to go with the Panama Canal so that they can get containers to be customer direction destinations quickly. So that's East Coast side problems. The West side has a big problem too, because the West side, you don't have a lot of customers anymore, because you just realize all of the vessels, containers coming down to the Panama Canal, we don't have a lot of containers down to our ports, especially the ports of Los Angeles, ports of Los Angeles and Port of Long Beach, the number 4, number 7 ports in the whole nation in terms of container volumes down there. So that's the two big picture regarding that. I think we need to prepare for this kind of impact. Also, this impact also extended to the railroad business in terms of ALAMEDA corridor. Do we need to do another one? I don't know at this moment, because I just realized that the volume is not there, what do you need to do? So we need to have a better understanding. This data should be collected to get a job to the level so that we can do some analysis to have a clear decision-making process settled out so we can get the impact to be clarified as much as we can. I think that's one side. Another side, the global trade right now. I remember right now China has one initiative going on. This is a massive, challenging, one of a time initiative we call it One Road, One Belt. So a lot of trade from China to any other countries, top one, top two trade nations, over there to other countries, and that's from China. So they try to expand all of this. So when we think about our strategy, how to get our goods to be exported to other countries somehow. So we need to look at our port configuration, different places with a different focus. So that helps us a lot. I just realized that, we have a new policy, American first. Everything should be made from America. We're trying to export as much goods as possible. So that's kind of line we need to think about how to initiate a policy to help this initiative, American first, American policy, American goods first out. I think that's very important for us to look at the process related to it. Bottom line, Panama Canal is a big issue, and also how to address the strategic plan related to goods movement, to initiate, to implement in the future one policy down there, U.S. first. I think that's very important thinking in our mind. We need to look at it.